Hey. All right. Welcome to Live with the Shaman. And of course, getting all of our knobs twisted and buttons pushed and switches flipped and what have you and get ready. All right. Well, our topic, as you well are aware, and we're going to jump right on in, is going to be the senior student and priesthood. Now, over this series, we have been going over the tradition. There's a reason for that, and I'm going to be talking about this quite a bit more as time goes on. Shortly after the first of the year, shortly after 2019, we're going to be doing a tradition upgrade, if you will. Um, Not necessarily a tradition rewrite, because I don't want to scrap the whole thing, but this thing's been around almost 10 years. The tradition prior to that had been around over 5 years, six, something like that, seven. Anyway, so um, I will be posting in the OpenGCS that we will be doing a tradition upgrade first part of 2019. So kind of keep that in mind. If you watch our broadcast, you'd like to be a part of the live tradition upgrade to kind of see how it's done. Your input is welcome. It will be a long live stream here on Facebook, right? Um, I have not been able to dual stream on both Facebook and YouTube. It's just not going to happen on the bandwidth that we have out here in the country. It's just not going to do it. So if you're watching our pre-recorded broadcast, and from the looks of it, nobody's up this morning. Um, if you're going to be watching the pre-recorded broadcast, please remember to watch for a date announcement on when the tradition upgrade will be in 2019. So again, our topic today, carrying on with our tradition series for the Grove of the Celtic Shaman, and please feel free by all means to put questions in your comments. Share the video to other people that might be interested in who and what we are. This is not an advert to try to drive people to the Grove of the Celtic Shaman by any means, but these videos are designed, these broadcasts are designed for newcomers to not only the pagan philosophy, but getting possibly interested in shamanism. So that's the whole purpose for these Live with a Shaman videos, right? So today we're going to be discussing the senior student and the priesthood. Now, the reason I combined these broadcasts is the senior student starts taking on little snippets of responsibilities of a first year priest. Now, understand that in the GCS, we kind of have an unsaid um, rule that goes into first year priest, um, senior priest. Um, some people call it first year priest, or aged, or I call it a senior priest, or just a priest. You know, I'm not. I generally don't introduce a new priest of the GCS as a first year priest. That's, you worked your ass off to get where you are. You worked your ass off to get to the priesthood. So I'm not going to slam you by saying, oh, you're a first year priest. Now, we may talk about it within Grove Business. We may talk about it, I'll talk about it with you once you become a priesthood, or once you become a priest if you're one of my students. How your teacher handles it, though, is very important. Now, understand, and I will reiterate and say again, until you became or become an oathed priest, right? Accepted by and respected by your teacher that is a oathed member of the GCS. You can then petition the GCS to become a teacher within or a priest within the Grove of the Celtic Shaman. We will, or your teacher will ask you at the time of your priest dedication certain questions, right? Question would be, would you like to join the oath of the tradition of the Grove of the Celtic Shaman to actually be a member therein? Also, would you like to enter your ministry, your pagan ministry training? We do that as well. So, with that kind of as an introduction, here we go. So, what can you expect from the um, senior student? Well, it says right here in the tradition, number 6, and this is located on page 12, about halfway down, growth in the path of shamanism. It's number 6. Student are also known as the first year, and then the senior student, number 7. Senior student doesn't always make it in the first year in a day. Now, like I say, please understand, senior student does not always make it in a year and a day. It's actually very seldom that they do. We put that in there to kind of give an approximation of where your training is going to be. So, the senior student, the leadership of each student while under the instruction of your teacher, usually about 6 months. So, what this means is you'll go through your first year, the first 6 months of your first year, you go through who am I, what am I about, what is shamanism to me, where does shamanism come from, and your teacher will take you through the training of not only shaman history or shamanic history, but pagan history as well. There's a lot to cover in that quote year and a day. Hey, Michelle. So as a senior student, you're still covering your first year, you're still covering your senior studentry, but however, once you take that step to senior student, now you're actually studying for your priesthood. You're going through the trials and the tribulations of the things that you're going to need to understand as a priest and where you're going to go. The different philosophies and the ideologies and most especially the responsibilities of a up and coming priest. Now, again, I say, this does not always only take 6 months. That's kind of rare if it does. So don't come in thinking you're going to skip to the loo and get right on through first year senior student and straight into the priesthood. I've seen this take an average of 2 to 3, sometimes over 3 years. The more you rush it, the longer it takes. So, what is a senior student? Well, a senior student has learned and accepted the responsibility of a shaman. The senior student has exhibited a growth in spirituality, a growth in philosophy, ideology, certain forms of psychology, the understanding of what shamanism is about. And the senior student really, truly get smacked with all of the up and coming responsibilities of things that need to be done. Now, here's one of the things I need to help you understand real quick about the senior student. It is normal. It is normal for a first year to go through their first 8 months worth of training, and then they disappear. Poof, gone. Not to be seen, heard of, heard from, or seen or found by anyone. They just disappear. Now, as teachers in the Grove of the Celtic Shaman, we had to get used to this. The first couple of times it happened to me, I was like, what the hell? Well, then I remembered back going through my training. My training was done by counsel through Spirit. I didn't have a human teacher. I went AWOL for almost a year. I didn't want training. I didn't want anything to do with anybody. I damn sure didn't want anybody telling me what to do for almost a year. Well, when I came back, counsel decided to yank a proverbial knot in my ass and explain to me just what for. So this is perfectly normal for a first year moving into their senior student to disappear for 3 to 6 months to as much as a year. But when you come back, you got to remember you can set yourself back a bit. I set myself back almost 6 months. Luckily, and as Michelle says, I'm not rushing it. A lot has been going on lately. Yes, it has. Um, Watching you and watching where you're going and the things that you've been going through, you've been running really, really fast with one foot nailed to the concrete. I thought about sending you, for Yule, I thought about sending you a crowbar and asking if that would help remove that peg so that you stop running around here. Well, anyway, at the time of this broadcast, um, December December 9th, 2018, Michelle is a senior student. She is working on her priesthood. She's working on going through her trials and through her steps into the priesthood. And bless her heart, she's been going through it. Now, and morning, Cindy. For those of you that don't know, Cindy is um, one of the ranking masters in the Grove. So definitely reach out to her anytime you have questions. So, but Michelle can probably share with you some of the things um, that she's having to go through as a senior student, most especially as a remote student. Now, I'm going to kind of sidetrack here a little bit. You know, you got to understand that as a remote student, it's harder on you. It's hard on the teacher, but it's extremely hard on you as a student because you don't get to see up front the things that we do. You don't get to interact on a one on one, face to face venue on casting circles, calling an altar, doing things that we do. All of that has to be done either on face chat, text, phone calls, direct calls, whatever. A lot of communication back and forth from email. So it gets really daunting, and a lot of people lose interest. It is really hard to be a remote student. I will say, bless her heart, Michelle is the first one of my remote students that has actually hung in there and is going through the steps and through the paces that need to be gone through. So being a remote student of the Grove of the Celtic Shaman is tough. Being a personal student where you live in the area where your teacher is makes life a lot easier, um, but remote students tough. So carrying on, right? The expectations. Now, you may find this a little weird, okay? but I tend to have higher expectations of a senior student than I do of a first year priest. I'll let you soak that in for a minute and think about it. I tend to have slightly higher expectations of a senior student than I do a first year priest. And here's why. Because you're kind of you're like having to ride a bicycle with no training wheels, okay? When when you leave the senior studentry and you move into the priesthood, you have no training wheels. You have um, even more expectations from your teacher. Well, then, listen to this part real close. If you decide to stay as a oathed member, if you decide to become, I should say, an oathed member to the Grove of the Celtic Shaman, then your expectations within the tradition triple. So the senior student is forming an understanding of what the basics of priesthood is all about. Because when you step in as a priest, and I use the word priest as unisex, priest, priestess, whatever. When I say priest, I'm not assuming male or female. Please understand that. When you assume the role and responsibility as a priest, then the expectations become more and more apparent. Um, yes, Dave says he's got a remote student, and it makes it tough, makes it hard to be able to keep up with it, right? Cindy says misspell word. Where? Senior student leadership. All students fall under the instruction of your teacher, usually about 6 months. Where's the spell? Where? Where's the misspell word? Anyway, we'll work on that. So, what do you think? What is the responsibilities of a senior student? Oh, Dave says, I'm a remote student. Sorry, I so misread that. Um, yeah, remote student. mm, yeah, tough. Um, Michelle. Michelle, are you still online? Michelle, if you're online still, if you're watching, I want you to type in the chat what you've gone through as a senior student, what your trials, what you've learned, and what you've gone through as a senior student. Yes, dear, I'm putting you on the spot because when your next dedication, I won't have the group to be able to put you on the spot, so to speak. Ah, she says I am. Okay, so yeah, put me on the spot. You are on the spot. You have been spotted. so, and while Michelle is posting, I'm also going to put Cindy on the spot. Cindy has been around for a long time. Cindy is um, secondary master of the grove under me, if there is ranking of a master, I guess. Um, she is only a master shaman within the grove. And see, here's the thing. Once you become a priest, high priest, master, whatever, you simply introduce yourself as shaman. You only introduce yourself with your rank. You only introduce yourself with your rank if you are in amongst other shamans and they want to know what your rank is. So here we go. Cindy, been around since '03. I'm going to put Cindy on the spot. Cindy, what do you remember from your first year? I remember a lot from Cindy's senior student into priesthood from her first year. Um, Michelle says I've been able to take what I learned during my one in one and apply it to life. She says life has become much easier, but some things have gone haywire. Yeah, absolutely. I only try to deal with what is going on in front of me and not what I project may come. Good call. Good call. Very few people actually get that one. I'll read that again. It says life has become easier for some things. For some things, they've gone haywire, right? She says she tries to deal with what's going on in front of her now, um, not what she might be projecting may come. In other words, you learn to deal with what's going on today. You don't assume that just because this is happening today, that something negative is going to happen tomorrow. You deal with it today. You deal with it as it comes, right? You don't want to try to read too much into it. That is a very hard lesson for a first year, most especially a senior student, because those responsibilities get a little more. And one of the things that you have to realize as a first year, if you are my student, I have you reading books that have nothing to do with shamanism. Like I said in one of the other broadcasts, I put you in a set of books to read during your first year to see how you take them, how you read them, what your perception of them are, and how they fit with you as a shamanic student. You'd be surprised some of the looks I get with the series of books that I have people read. And I typically tend not to share the names of those books unless specifically asked and not in open forum. So, what are some of the expectations of a priest, right? Well, let's think about some of the decisions as a priest that you need to make. When your teacher, uh-oh, my coffee's about empty. But I have backup. I have Dr. Pepper. I can flip from coffee to Dr. Pepper with a twist of a lid. Michelle says the books I had her read were great books. It took her a while to understand what they meant, and see that is also a key. You don't want to rush through these things and go, oh, it means this or oh, it means that, because you read it the first time and it may have a completely, totally different meaning because you're reading it. The first time you're reading it, you're reading without the shaman mindset. You're reading with the mindset of just simply reading a book. And that's what I tell people when I prescribe these books to them to read is you're simply reading it with an open mindset, no preconceived notion or ideas, and then I ask for reports on what you're getting out of these books. Now what this does as an introduction to your shaman training is it teaches you to see things differently. It teaches you to approach things with a slightly different philosophy rather than just day to day society trained human being. Because, well, we all know shamans are generally not anti society, but we definitely do not think, feel, act, or react the way mainstream society would think we should. So, there you go on that. She took a while to actually read them. Very good. She recommended them to her friend whose husband was pissed. Oh, husband passed. Oh, I'm sorry. I left it. God damn, I can't read today. Husband has passed. I'm sorry for her loss. I thought it said husband was pissed. I've seen a lot of women read the set of books that I put out, and it has pissed off the husband because it makes him see things from a different point of view. Cindy says, remember the senior student was having to cope with my blood family troubles. Yeah, I remember that. Um, they disowned her. Yep, that was unfortunate. Getting divorced. Yep. Learning who and what her counsel was. Yep. Learning and opening up as a shaman to the world. Yeah. Learning to balance. Okay. So here comes your responsibility as understanding what a priest really is, right? So let's take a look back over and see what the tradition says, and I'll see if I can't better explain it out for you. I wonder if I can enlarge it. Wow! I didn't mean to enlarge it that much. Anyway, what the hell? Okay, I didn't think it would enlarge that big. All right. Anyway, what the hell am I? Here we go. All right. So when when you're working on your priesthood, right? You cross into the priesthood of your craft while still under the instruction of counsel, usually about 1 or 2 years to the high priest. So, and one of the reasons I want to do an update on the tradition is it really doesn't get explanatory within these variable breakdowns, which is why I'm going to be reaching out on the OpenGCS Facebook page and scheduling a tradition upgrade, which will be a live stream here on Facebook with people in the chat. Come and go as you please. Offer your ideas. Um, Understand that additions to the tradition do have to be approved by all members, in other words, priests and above, that actually are oathed to the tradition. Those changes have to be approved by a vote. So before we save a change, I will put to a vote. Now here's something for you, and I'll say this many, many, many times between now and the upgrade. If you're not in the chat and you're not present, you don't have a vote. So if you miss it, or you slept through it, or something went stupid, then you're just sucking hind tit. You lost out. So, what are the responsibilities of a priest? Well, there's many. The priesthood can be a bit of a pain. The first decisions when you are as a dedicate to the priesthood, right? A face to face student will be brought before the fire. There'll be a fire lit. It's not anything real big. There's a circle of your peers, both shaman and non shaman. You are presented to your peers to ask questions of you, and you're required to answer those questions. You have no time to prepare. A shaman has to be able to fly off the seat of their pants with answers to questions. However, if you are a remote student coming over as a priest, then you are presented to the open GCS for, same thing, questions by the group. You will not take your vow as a priesthood until those questions are answered and satisfied. So you're put before your peers to answer these questions as an up and coming priest or shaman. That is decision one. Decision two is, do you accept the responsibilities of a priest? Do you accept the responsibilities to come across and continue to learn, continue to respect and treat people with respect, and follow the oath of the tradition as you've learned it back up in the code of conduct? Brain fart. The Grove of the Celtic Shaman does have a very serious code of conduct, and you'll be required to remember that code of conduct. So that's number two. Number three, you've accepted the questions and you answered them. You've accepted the um, acknowledgement of the priesthood, the responsibilities, and ready to take the oath of a priest. The third is you're required to make a decision whether or not you will branch out as an independent shaman recognized within the GCS as a priest or priestess, whatever. However, though you'll be recognized as a brother or a sister to the Grove, you won't actually be a member of the Grove. You'll be what's called a brother or a sister to the Grove. Thereby, you are recognized as a priest. We respect you and treat you as such. Um, you're just not required to follow that tradition, right? These decisions have to be made on the spot. You're not allowed to go home and think about it. You're not allowed to, as a shaman, you have to be able to follow your heart. As a shaman trained within the GCS, you have to be able to follow who you are, where you're going, and you have to be confident enough in yourself to be able to do so. During your time as a priest, here comes the fun part. You will have to make the decision to train or not to train as a minister. Now, being a trained minister within the Grove of the Celtic Shaman does not automatically make you a legal minister within whatever state or country you may live. I can tell you within the United States, each state within the USA has different base laws as to what a recognized minister is of whatever religion. That means you can perform wedding ceremonies legally, that is recognized by the federal government and the state. You can perform burials. You can do eulogies, burials, what we call rites of passage as shaman. And you have the right to lead groups of people spiritually as their minister, and recognized by the state. Now, whether or not individuals choose to recognize you as a minister, that's between you and them. You will be required to study and present as a report of study to your teacher, right? Um, for perusal and discussion to be sure you're following the laws within your state. What that means is that if you are in, let's choose somebody that I let's choose some location that I know for a fact I have no students there yet. um, West Virginia, Colorado. I like that song. Anyway, John Denver. Yeah, I digress. Let's say you live in West Virginia and you're a remote student and you're going through the priesthood and you decide you want to be a pagan minister within your state. You are required to study what it takes to become and maintain the ministry license within your state. Now, what that means is if you are a licensed minister in West Virginia, you does not mean that you can come to Texas and be immediately recognized as a minister without studying Texas ministry law. All that's done in the priesthood. As a priest, you learn more and more responsibilities within the astral. You learn more open responsibilities by your teacher. The conversations on the magical side of shamanism become more verbose and more shamanic training deeper into the realms. As a priest, you're still wearing the white robe. So you're still understanding what it is to live in the light. And that is hard. Anybody that has ever taken the oath to live in the light as a first year senior student and priest understand that is a pain in the ass. Yes, it is. It's not as easy as some would think. Now, as you work through your later portion, maybe as a senior priest, if your teacher sees fit to approach the elders of the grove and say, I feel this student is ready to begin the study of the dark side of the high priest. My question would be, are you absolutely certain that this student is capable of learning the dark side while wearing the oath of the white robe? That will screw with the best of them. Think about that. There are other responsibilities that goes along with being a priest, but for the most part, you can rewind this broadcast and listen to the variables again, which I recommend that you do. We don't take what we do lightly. We have fun with it. We like to laugh and cut up, have fun, and open conversation. Really, nothing is taboo when we're all sitting together, really. We work hard against judgmental attitudes of others. We just let people be who they are. I don't have to agree with it. I don't have to associate with it. But as my own personal self, I do like to accept people for who and what they are. So that's about all there is. That's about all we can say about this one today. Again, I do want to say that um, go to the Open Grove of the Celtic Shaman if you want to know the link on it. Ask, send any one of us a PM. We'll be happy to send it to you. Feel free to download the tradition and read it for yourself. Feel free to join the Open Grove of the Celtic Shaman to involve yourself in the conversation because I will be kicking off the conversation of the tradition upgrade pretty soon. This is December. It is 2018, and I want this um, publication of the Grove of the Celtic Shaman update uh, posted by February or March of 2019. And we'll discuss this again off and on throughout the other broadcasts. So again, I'll give you your Sunday back. Go back, rewind, listen to some of this again. Post your questions. The guys will be glad to answer you where they can, and I will of course be glad to answer you where I can. By all means, subscribe, share these videos. They're not copyrighted. They're I, do with them what you want. Feel free to share them. Head, you know, check it out. Thank you for watching Live with the Shaman, and we'll see you next week right here.